Welcome back to Alex's Book Club. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my top 5 reads of 2025. In 2025, I had a great reading year. I read 60 books at the time of this recording, and of those 60 books, 17 ended up being 5 stars. So as you can imagine, it was difficult for me to narrow those 17 5-star reads down to my top 5, but with further review, I was able to do so, and I'd like to share those with you. So if you're struggling to find your next read, or you're setting your TBR for 2026 or January, I invite you to come along. I will be sharing my top 5 reads starting from number 5 and going up to my top rated book of 2025. Number 5 on my top 5 in 25 was Every Beautiful Mile by Ashley Manley. I read so many romances in 2025, 32 to be exact. So they made up more than half of my total reading. And this was the only romance book to make my top 5. So if that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will. This was a beautiful story about the female main character, Nell, who recently lost her husband of 17 years and was left to pick up the pieces and move on for the sake of her 2 teenage children. She was also given another chance at love, though reluctant at first to take it. When the relationship began to grow, it was absolutely beautiful. I really saw a lot of myself in Nell. I was 41, just like Nell, when I read the book. I had also been married for 17 years at the time of reading the book, so I really put myself in her shoes and thought about what would happen if, heaven forbid, I was in the same situation. And for that reason, it really hit home. Number 4 on my list was A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman. I was introduced to Frederick Bachman's writing through this book, and though it was different than my typical romance, it was a contemporary fiction, I ended up falling in love with Uwe's character and all of the side characters and found family in this book. This book starts off with an old curmudgeon of a man named Uwe. I saw a lot of similarities between Uwe and my late father-in-law, so again, it really hit home for me. But poor Uwe was really grieving a loss in his life and was trying to figure out whether or not to continue on with his life. New neighbors move in that kind of foil his plan, and they end up needing him for a few things, and there were just so many laugh out loud situations. I found myself giggling so many different times, and the rest of the neighborhood also rallied behind Uwe as well, and it was just such a character-driven story, and I loved it so much that I have another Frederick Bachman novel on my 26 and 26. I'm going to be tackling My Friends, which I believe is Frederick Bachman's newest release, and I've heard wonderful things about it. Number 3 on my top 5 in 25 was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is a young adult fantasy novel, and it was my first fantasy read of 2025. I highly recommend this book. In this story, we have our FMC Iris and our MMC Roman, and the two are workplace rivals. So you have the great enemies to lovers trope, and the two are gunning for the same position at a newspaper. And along the way, Iris finds a magical typewriter. She starts writing, and she doesn't realize she's actually writing to her rival, Roman, but the two ultimately fall in love through letters. It's such a beautiful love story between the two of them. There's some great fantasy elements, some great side characters, and the first book leaves off on such a cliffhanger that it leaves you wanting to pick up the second in the series, Ruthless Vows. Number 2 on my list was Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you're anywhere on BookTube, you've seen this book spoken about in great length, and there's a reason for that. It is such a great novel. I have read many other of Taylor Jenkins Reid's backlist and loved all of them that I've read, and I believe that this is my favorite of all of hers. This is classified as historical fiction. It's about our main female character, Joan, who enters into the first astronaut program in the 1980s. And the book starts off on such a high stakes scenario where there is a crew up in space and something has clearly gone wrong. And then we toggle back to when Joan first becomes part of the space crew, and then we go back to current day, and we keep going back and forth as we learn about Joan. We learn about Joan's family and her beautiful relationship with her niece Frances, and Joan starts to find herself and she falls in love, and we learn all about that and their relationship. The end had me in absolute hysterics, just bawling my eyes out. Get ready for a tearjerker with this one. Have a box of tissues ready. Don't plan to read this in public if you don't like to cry in public. But it was such a beautiful story. There were so many wonderful quotes, and I highly recommend you put this on top of your TBR for 2026. And without further ado, my number 1 read in 2025 was a literary fiction novel, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This book took me by complete surprise. I had seen many reviews of it talking about a talking octopus and thought to myself that I would not be able to take a book like that seriously, but boy was I wrong. This was such a beautiful book. If you like character-driven novels that are told through the eyes of multiple POVs, this one may just be for you. It's told from 4 different POVs, one of which I already spoiled is from the perspective of the octopus Marcellus, but there are also 3 others, and it explores topics of grief and loss, finding friendship in the most unusual places, and starting over. I think about this book often, and I know that I will be thinking about it well into 2026 and beyond. That concludes my top 5 in 2025. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel for more bookish content. Please consider sharing your top 5 in 2025 in the comments below. Thank you so much for your continued support as I start to grow this channel. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.